Okay, looks like we're good to go. Um, and then just at the top, uh, Chair Casey had a great idea that all the members maybe briefly introduce themselves to the committee so everyone knows who we're talking to. I can sort of start with Chair Casey and then I'll go down the list just so we have not everyone's talking at once. So Chair Casey, take it away.
Very good. Thank you very much, John. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Megan Casey, and I'm a partner at the law firm Gallagher LLP here in Baltimore.
Great. Mr. Santini.
Good afternoon, everyone. Happy to see everybody. My name is Raphael Santini. I'm a solo practitioner. We've been at this about 40 years. I'm the medium past president of the Maryland State Bar.
And Ms. Fretwell.
Hi, Vicki Fretwell. I am retired, retired back to work, but the reason I'm on this commission is I'm representing the Maryland General Assembly, having worked there as a communication director for 15 years.
Great. Mr. Williams.
Yes, Carlos Williams, physician with the Department of Defense.
Great. Ms. Mason.
Chanel Mason. I'm a senior organizational development program manager with Franklin Templeton. It's a global investment firm. Been there for 23 years.
Mr. Wallace. Sorry. Yes.
John Wallace-Liston, retired, former president of Maryland Technology Development Corporation, and also former deputy secretary of DBM and Department of Labor.
Great. And then Ms. Mitchell.
Good afternoon, everybody. Monica Mitchell. I come with 25 years of financial services and organizational management experience and public policy experience representing as a community member focused on the HR and budget perspectives.
Great. And then I think maybe just from the judiciary, if you could just briefly reintroduce yourselves from last time. So I guess I'll just go through how I see him on the list. Chief Judge Morrissey.
Usually lead with my boss, Chief Justice Fader, but I'm John Morrissey. I'm Chief Judge of the District Court of Maryland. Good afternoon, everyone.
Afternoon. Chief Justice Fader.
Hi, good afternoon. Matt Fader with the Maryland Supreme Court.
And Justice Buron.
Good afternoon, Jonathan Buron from the Supreme Court of Maryland, and I'm chair of our Judiciary Special Committee on Judicial Compensation.
And then Judge Carrington. Oh, I think you're muted, Judge.
Need to take the mute off. Good afternoon. Scott Carrington, Associate Judge, Circuit Court for Prince George's County.
Okay, great. I think that's everyone. Then I will turn it over to Chair Casey to see how she wants to run this meeting and if she wants to open to questions or if anyone has anything they'd like to discuss.
Thank you very much, John, and thank you to you and Scott and Jesus for all the work that you're doing to assist the commission. So I appreciate the members of the judiciary joining us again and taking time out of your busy days. I thought it would be helpful to invite you back. I had one or two questions, and I thought it was possible that other members of the commission might have follow-up questions based on the discussion last week and also the additional materials that were provided to us a few days after last week's meeting. And thank you to Justice Buron and others on the committee for helping to provide us that additional information. So my thinking of how we would organize the meeting would be to give members of the commission the opportunity to ask questions of the judiciary and have that dialogue first. And then I think, as we did last time, to allow the members of the judiciary to exit and get back to their days and their dockets. And then we could proceed from there with additional discussion. I will just say, since the last meeting, my own thinking about whether we should have 2 meetings or 3 has evolved. I think that it would probably be helpful for us to have a 3rd meeting. In other words, I think perhaps we should not be taking a vote on recommendations today. And I think we can after the judiciary has exited and after additional discussion, we can discuss with DLS when would be the best time to schedule that additional meeting. And I think it could probably be relatively brief, understanding that, everyone has holidays and other things going on with year end. So that's how I was thinking we would organize. Does anyone have any questions or concerns or suggestions before we get started? Great.
Our deadline for responding or giving our vote is the 31st.
So by law, and please, John and Scott and Jesus, feel free to jump in. By law, we must give our recommendation to the General Assembly no later than the first day of session, which this year is January 14th. So I think we want to be respectful of DLS's time, and that they're the ones who really do the heavy lifting and putting the report together once we've voted on our recommendations. But I think we could, if we needed to, schedule a meeting for very early in January after December 31st.
Thank you.
John, please tell me if I got any of that wrong.
No, that's correct.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, great. Thank you, Vicky, for that. Anything else before we get started? Great. Okay. One sort of point of clarification I wanted to go over, and DLS could maybe help with this, is about the question of the stipend that we discussed last time. We did, with DLS's help, kind of renew our request for advice from the Attorney General's office and get some advice on that. And John, maybe could you or Scott sort of walk us through what you learned there, and then the members of the commission could ask any follow-up questions they might have?
Sure. It's the advice of the Attorney General that if you decide to, you can give a stipend that is within your jurisdiction of the commission. However, the AG also did recommend to include in your recommendations, just including some statutory changes just to make that explicit, so there isn't such a gray area or confusion in the future. But that is the advice that we received from the Attorney General.
And so last time, Chief Judge Morrissey had referred us to the provision of the Courts and Judicial Proceedings article, which is, I believe it's 1702, that refers to his position. By virtue of him being in that role, he has additional compensation because of that. And so the recommendation, as we understand it from the Attorney General's office, is that we recommend amending that section of the code to create an additional, whether we call it stipend or supplement or whatever is the right wording. OAG and DLS will help us figure that out, to incorporate additional compensation for circuit court administrative judges and additional compensation for the chief of the appellate court during the period that those individuals serve in those roles. So other members of the commission, do you have questions or comments about that, either for DLS or for the judiciary?
Just confirming that would not be part of their salary. Just in terms of if there's any movement later on, that we recognize that they can't move the salary. They can't change they can change the salary. They cannot change the stipends from our recommendations. So I just want to make sure that those are separate based on that advice.
Is your question, Monica, whether we know that by law the General Assembly can reduce whatever increase we might recommend? Are you asking whether the General Assembly has the authority to eliminate the stipend or ignore the recommendation as to the stipend?
That's correct. Since the stipend is technically not a salary, and in the advice, it specifically calls out salary.
I don't know the answer to that question. John or Scott, do you know?
So it seems in the Attorney General advice, their view is that the specific language is that you study and make recommendations with respect to all aspects of judicial compensation. So it is the Attorney General's view that would include the stipend. So whatever you recommend to the General Assembly, they can decrease it. They can't decrease it past what the current set is. So they couldn't make it less than whatever judges are getting compensated now, and they can't increase it. All they could do is move it down to at most just keep it the same as it is currently.
I think one of the, and Monica, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think this question came up last time, is that the stipend that we give is a stipend. It is only during the time that they are in the position of administrative position. So that'd be clear to statute to say that they will receive X amount of dollars during this period of time. If they change to another position, they're no longer in that position, that does not go with them. That is not added to their base salary. That is only when they're serving in that position. Did I get that right, Monica?
That's my understanding. This is Vicky.
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay.
And members of the judiciary, I'll direct this to Justice Buran as the chair of the committee. That is the request, right? The way that Carlos just described it.
Correct. Exactly.
Okay.
I did have one question too, just to refresh my memory. Why specifically these judges? Did we say they had a higher burden or greater responsibility? Why are we requesting that they have additional money anyway? I just wanted to be refreshed on that.
Yeah.
On that, if that question is directed to judiciary, I'll defer to Chief Judge Morrissey on that point.
Thank you. They do have increased burdens, considerable increased burdens. They have to handle all the administrative side of the court. They have to do all the scheduling for the judges. They have to do the budgets. They little different between the district court and the circuit court. We're a statewide centralized court in the district court, but they still are responsible for creating budgets for each of their own courts and then submitting them to me. And then I submit them to Chief Justice Fader as kind of a unified budget. Whereas the circuit courts have to work with their individual counties in their county, whatever county commissioner or county executives, whoever it is that they, what form of system they have, and they have to go in front of them and justify their budget to them. That takes a considerable period of time. And then I think I made the comment of herding cats, but with judges, it's like herding lions. So they have responsibility for all of the judges underneath them, basically.
Thank you.
And I think I likely neglected to say earlier when I talked about administrative judges of the circuit courts and then the chief of the appellate court, I did not say administrative judges of the district court, and I didn't mean to exclude them. So am I understanding correctly? The judiciary's proposal is that at all those three levels, at the district court, at the circuit court, and then the chief of the appellate court, all would get this. Your recommendation is $7,500 annual stipend, commensurate with their additional workload.
That's correct. There's 12. The district court is broken up into 12 districts. Some districts, the larger ones like Baltimore City, are its own district. But when you get over to the Eastern Shore or out west, there are multiple county districts. So, for example, District 2 is Caroline, Kent, Talbot, Queen Anne, and Cecil counties. And so that administrative judge is responsible for the functioning of 5 different courthouses in 5 different counties. In the circuit court, each county has its own administrative judge, and then a circuit administrative judge that oversees whatever the I believe it's 7. Is it? I'm not a circuit court judge, so I don't know how many circuits there are. There's 7 or 8. I know there's 7 appellates, 8. There's 8 circuit court circuits. But each county has its own administrative judge, and they're responsible then for their courthouse and all the personnel in that courthouse.
Just a point of clarification, Judge Morrissey. The stipend that you have requested, in addition to not getting paid an increase in 26, 27, and then getting an increase in 28 and 29, with respect to the stipend, did you want that stipend to be part of the salary of the administrative judge, so that reflects their pension also? Or is that separate?
I mean, that would be the best possible outcome that could occur. Again, just based on the way that my compensation works, that is part of my salary. but it's only during the term that I serve as the chief judge. And that's the way I had envisioned it before. But if this commission feels that it would be better as a stipend, we really want something to reflect the additional duties that these judges undertake. And I know from my own experience, at the same time that I was applying to become the chief judge of this court, I'm from Prince George's, that's my home court. The administrative judge from there was retiring. So on the day I became chief judge, he retired. And he had asked me beforehand to be the administrative judge. And I was hesitating to say yes to that because there was no additional compensation. And it was a significant increase in responsibilities over me just being a line associate judge. So that's kind of what it's designed to do, to reflect that these individuals have a much greater responsibility than your typical associate judge of the court.
Oh yeah, I'm in total agreement with that. Dealing with the administrative judges around the state, I know the burden that they face because everything eventually gets to them. But my question is a little bit more succinct. With the stipend, is that going to be part of their salary for pension purposes, or is this going to be a one-time event that doesn't get calculated into their salary if they stay, obviously, being the administrative judge?
So I think that's up to us to recommend.
Right.
But it sounded like I was hearing Chief Judge Morrissey say, in the ideal world for the judiciary, it would be part of the judge's salary. Am I understanding that correctly, Chief Judge Morrissey?
That's correct, Ms. Casey.
Thank you. Thank you for making it clear for me. Thank you.
But if I would add, and I think that we had this, I think it was part of the conversation last time as well. Chief Judge, if you were to leave this position now, and take on another position, you would no longer be eligible for the additional money in your compensation in your salary, right?
That's correct. I'd go back to being an associate judge of the district court and resume the salary for an associate judge. And that's the way I'd envisioned it with the administrative judges too.
So in that case, if you retired 5 years after you assumed a new position and gave up this position, that wouldn't be included in your salary. This is the question I'm asking, because are you based on high three? Are your judges based on their pension in terms of their retirement is based on where they were when they left service, correct? Am I?
Yes, I believe that's correct, but I'm not an expert in that area, Mr. Williams. I believe it, during the time that I was chief judge, I would get the salary toward the retirement and all those things that go along with that. But if I went back to be an associate judge, for example, if I sat as a senior judge, my salary would be based on an associate judge's salary rather than the chief judge's salary. If that helps at all. Right.
So, okay, I got you. I think how we write this is going to matter. Madam Chair, I think because a stipend usually is not, again, included in the base salary of an employee. It is an additional funds for a specific purpose. And so when that person retires, based on how the retirement system works, if it is based on high three, if it's based on the current time, and then that wouldn't be included anyway. Because I think retirement is only based on what your base salary is. That's from a federal standpoint of view. I'm assuming that it's the same for the state, and I would have to get clarification on that.
But could one of the members of the judiciary speak to that point about how pension is calculated?
So I can speak to that. The pension is calculated based on the salary of an existing judge holding the same position. That might not bring as much clarity to the specific question you're asking, but basically it keeps up with the time. So it's not a high three. If you retire as an associate judge of the circuit court, then your pension is whatever the percentage is of an active circuit court judge's salary. So the decisions that are made by this group also affect the senior judges in service now who are and retired judges. But with respect to this specific question, I think that the answer, if you are an administrative judge and then later become an associate judge, well, I shouldn't say. I'd want to go look at the technical language. We haven't had that happen, so that that I'm aware of, because we haven't had a stipend for. We haven't had an increase in any position over the other associate judges other than mine, Chief Judge Morrissey's, and Chief Judge Wells's. Those are the only three positions where an administrative role gives additional salary, and I'm not aware of anybody who has left one of those positions and become an associate judge so that we would have this situation come up.
Have you had anybody who retired, and how have you had anybody from your positions that you get additional compensation retire? And
my understanding is that my predecessors have retired and that their pensions have been calculated based off of my salary.
And that's also consistent with my predecessors.
including the additional.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, including the additional compensation was included in that?
Stipend.
Yeah, so we don't, for all of us, it's not a stipend, it's our salary. So I get the salary of the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Maryland. There's no supplementation of it. My salary is just a little bit more than the other justices. And so because the salary is based on the holder of that position, they all get, because they all had more than 16 years, they all get 2/3 of my salary.
I see. Now, how common is it for administrative judges to leave that position but stay on in state government and to go back to being associate?
So I would say that it's relatively uncommon. We had a situation recently in one of the counties on the Eastern Shore where the judge wanted to be an associate judge for the last year. So he stepped down and was an associate judge for the last year. I don't know what the impact of this change would have on that. But the most common path is once they become an administrative judge, they keep that until they retire. That is not necessarily the case. They all serve at the pleasure at the circuit court administrative judge level at my pleasure, and at the district court level at the pleasure of Chief Judge Morrissey. But the more common case is that they retire as administrative judge.
Or they're in the district court. A lot of times they're elevated to the circuit court, and so they couldn't be the administrative judge of the district court anymore because they're now a circuit court judge. Like, kind of, Judge Carrington left the district court. I'm still smarting about that a little bit because he's now a circuit court judge.
Yeah, that can happen at all levels. The district court, circuit court, appellate court judges can all certainly move up to a different court, in which case their salary based on the structure is always higher than it was at the prior court.
Okay.
So that's very helpful. Thank you. Do others have questions about the issue of the stipend or the supplemental compensation, however we're defining it, for administrative judges?
I have one more question. I have a question. Would it be possible to, instead of recognizing this payment as part of salary, if we could recognize it as like a one-time payment, like an incentive, a bonus? It would be taxed differently than salary, but then that would probably solve for the issue of like pension calculations, the impact it might have on pension calculations. Is there any opposition to recognizing it as like a one-time payment that is completely separate from salary?
I agree with you on that, Chanel. I was thinking the same way. It'd be an annual one-time payment. And so what do you call it? Stipend, bonus, like you said, whatever term that does not, impact the member on a tax scale, but given an annual one-time bonus that is separate, so it will not be a part of salary per se. And the term salary being a specific term, by the way.
Right.
Just one comment on that, what we call it. Since the Attorney General has approved the word stipend and stands by it again, I wonder whether if we want to go down this particular component of our recommendation, we should stick with a term that they've already blessed. If we call it a bonus, it could be something the legislature says we're not doing bonuses or whatever, even though we're trying to achieve the same thing. So if we're going to go that, I think stipend looks like it has passed the review of the Attorney General's office, and we might want to consider that.
Yeah,
That's fair.
yep.
Mhm.
I would also just remind the commission that this is a relatively modest number. It's less than $300,000 all in, with benefits that's on there. And that's a very small portion of the judiciary's overall budget.
Thank you. So unless there are any other questions on that issue, I have one other question for the judiciary, and then we'll be happy to open it up to any other questions that any other members of the commission might have. I wanted to, it's interesting we got into the subject of pensions. I wanted to return to that point of the judiciary's report to us. I think when we talked last time, it seemed as though that there were discussions actively with Maryland State Retirement and Pension System that the judiciary was having, but I wasn't sure whether there was separately a recommendation that the judiciary was looking for us to make related to pensions. And so I was hoping the judiciary could speak to that in a little more detail.
Thank you. I can tell you where we are right now, and that is we, based on some feedback we've gotten from the state retirement agency, and frankly, comments from some of the commissioners, members of the commission last week, we had decided to not further pursue changes relating to pensions through this body, and so I think at this point we would probably just leave it at that, and at least for the time being, and not ask the commission to make a recommendation about those issues. We appreciate the suggestion and the implicit suggestion that perhaps it would be something for you to talk about. But I think where we are right now is we're going to do further thinking about it internally, and potentially pursue legislation through other channels.
Understood. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Are there other questions or other subjects that members of the commission would like to discuss with the judiciary?
Megan, it's Vicky. I'd like to revisit the conversation we had the other day about the decision to put nothing in the first 2 years and then load the last 2 years, and the concern that we had about the state's financial situation being worse in that period of time than it's going to be now. So, and whether or not the judiciary had entertained other ideas beside what they're asking for at this point.
So Justice Buron, or would you like to speak to that?
Sure, thank you. I can tell you, Ms. Frightwell, that in the course of our work as a committee, we've talked a lot about a lot of different possibilities, and after we met with some legislative leaders, where we landed based on some of those discussions was the recommendation that you saw in our report. Of course, we understand that this body has an independent judgment to make, and will decide whatever it feels is best. And then from there, the General Assembly, of course, will view your recommendations and can't go any higher in any particular year, but certainly could reduce. So we are, as a judiciary, of course, open to whatever additional options you as a body might feel are appropriate. We certainly hope that when we look at the end of 4 years, that we would be where we overall were recommending, at least from the perspective of this body, understanding the General Assembly may have other ideas. But it seemed to us, based on our discussions with legislative leaders, that it was a reasonable course of action for us to try to recommend to you all that we defer increases until the last 2 years. But certainly we would not object if you believed that those increases should be spread out over a longer period.
Thank you. I have to step away for 1 minute. I'll be back.
Thank you.
Justice Green, I think that question came up, and thank you for that response, actually. But not knowing the fiscal state of Maryland in 2 years, it may be a little challenging. And I think one of the things we don't want to do is make sure our judges have nothing if the state is doing well. So I guess the question is, why particularly 2 years? What was the rationale behind the first two? Is that assuming that we're in dire straits now and we have the assumption that we will be in a better fiscal position in 2 years? Or I just wanted to hear your thought process on the first two opposed to and the last two, because I think the last two is the gamble that we don't know.
I can't speak to what particular member of leadership in the General Assembly had in mind for that. I would only be speculating, so I'd prefer not to speculate. What I would say is, you have obviously all kinds of different options and how you can spread things out. In any particular year, though, just be aware that if you set it at 0, I don't think the General Assembly can go higher in that year. And so if hypothetically the commission was generally in agreement that a reasonable increase over 4 years was the $27,500 that we had recommended, I guess the only thing to be, from our perspective, to be concerned about is if you even that out over 4 years, and then the General Assembly decides in year 1 and year 2 that they in fact don't want to provide any salary increase, we might then be constrained in years 3 and 4 just at that lower amount. So that's just something that I think you probably already know and don't need me to reinforce, but I just wanted to mention that. So of course we value, and we obviously know the challenging times we're in. At the same time, we're proud of the work we do, and we don't apologize for that. We think we hold important positions of responsibility. So we would just encourage you, if you believe that it's important, that if you believe that it's best to give the General Assembly an option to also provide a salary increase in years 1 and 2, that you not necessarily take that away from years 3 and 4, but that you give the General Assembly that option and that flexibility to adjust things once it gets to them, if you follow me.
And just to make it crystal clear, Justice Buran, you've met with the legislature leaders and they are in agreement with the proposal.
I can't speak to that because we met with them before we finalized our proposal, and we have not asked them for their input. I mean, I think that's put in the, from our perspective, we want that will be put in the cart before the horse. What I can say is that we drafted our proposal mindful of different feedback we've gotten from a few members in the leadership.
So the point is, you have received feedback from the leadership.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we have, but I can't. But the numbers, for example, the numbers in year 3 and 4, that I can't say that comes from leadership. It doesn't.
I understand.
The advice was not. It had nothing to do with the numbers. It was basically to backload, to not have increases in the beginning and to have it at the end.
Thank you.
If there are other questions on this, can I just return back to one thing, because I just wanted to find the statutory language. It is I think, the way I described it, but the statutory language for retirement is in section 27402 of personnel and pensions. And it says no retirement or on retirement under this subtitle, a retiree is entitled to receive a retirement allowance that equals 2/3 of the salary. So it specifically says salary payable in that fiscal year to a member holding the same level judicial position as that held by the retiree on termination of service. So that's the statutory language. It addresses salary, not total, not any other compensation, and by whoever holds the same level judicial position.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief Justice Fader. I'm sorry, you said that's 27402 of?
27402A of state personnel and pensions.
Okay. And John, could we, I think we either asked the judiciary to, and they did, or you did, analyze the fiscal impact of their proposal. Would it be possible to analyze it if we were looking at this as a stipend versus if we were looking at this as a salary? And I ask that not remembering whether the fiscal impact of the judges who are currently receiving pensions was taken into account.
This would be probably more of a Scott question.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, regarding the stipends, it would be very tricky for us to get a figure comparing that 7,500 as a stipend versus an actual part of the salary, because as part of the salary, of course, you have to consider your pensions, but also other fringe benefits like Social Security, like anything like that. But so what we do for those kind of calculations is we send those off to actuaries, and it takes them probably at least a week and a half or so, if not more, to actually calculate that. So it would just be it'd be very time consuming to kind of get those figures. And I'm not sure we could get it in the amount of time that we need to, that you need to make a decision.
I understand. And it sounds like from the statutory language Chief Justice Fader just read, and sort of to John Wassilison's point earlier, that if we call it a stipend, which is what the Attorney General's office has blessed, as John said, that would mean it would not be included in the calculation for setting a retired judge's pension. That's how I'm understanding the statutory language.
Me as well.
Okay, that's helpful. Are there other questions for the judiciary?
I have a request for next time around. This is my second time doing this, and I feel like we get information a little close to when or delays our ability to sit down and have the conversation. So I want to request, considering your report says you worked on this for 6 months, I want to request that we get it earlier next time around so that we can explore things more thoroughly than we might be able to right now. And in asking that, I have no idea what challenges that presents to you, and I respect whatever they are, but any way we could get it earlier would be better.
We thank you for that feedback. We'll certainly take that to heart. I can promise you that. A lot, as you saw in the data, a lot of our data comes from the National Center for State Courts. And so we, in trying to get you the most current available data, I know that some of that data doesn't come out till pretty close in time. So what I can tell you is that in order to try to get you the next commission the most helpful data, we would like to have current data nationwide so you can really compare where we fit in. But we will then really do our best to add that into our work in progress and get it to you as quickly as we can.
Appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Yeah.
Forgive me, this may have been included in the report that you provided us, Justice Buron, but from that data from the National Center for State Courts, did you include or do they provide data on the percentage increases that the judiciary in the various states have had over year? I sort of understand we have the cost of living factor that's helpful. We have the sort of the raw salaries that's helpful, but do they calculate that information?
There is information. I'm just looking to refresh my own memory. I'm looking at our report, and we do have there at least there are some percentages that we provide in the charts to you all that shows a percentage change. This is, for example, on page 33 of our report this time around. I see percentage changes from July 1st of 21 to July 1st of 25 for each state, applying the cost of living factor. What I don't recall sitting here right now is whether that data was included in the National Center reports or whether we calculated it in-house.
I see.
But that's I think the extent of that's certainly the extent of the percentage data that I think we've got in our report. And but I'll double check after we're done here to see what the raw data, what we get from the National Center for State Courts, and see if there's more percentage data available that we could provide to you either this time around or certainly in future years.
And that is exactly what I was looking for. So that's very helpful. So I see starting on page 28 of your report, and then by category of judge going forward. And so that is with the cost of living factor applied?
Believe so.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions or comments, observations for the judiciary? All right, well, very good. Thank you. Chief Justice Fader, Justice Buron, Chief Judge Morrissey, Judge Carrington, thank you all so much for your time and your additional perspective. We really appreciate it.
Thank you all. Thanks again to all of you for your commitment to serving on this commission. We really appreciate it, and thank you for your thoughtful questions and for allowing us to be part of this.
Thank you all very much. And if we don't see you beforehand, have a wonderful holiday.
I would second that. Happy holidays, everybody.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Thank you.
Happy Hanukkah to those celebrating now.
Take care.
Thank you.
All right. So I did, as I said at the outset, wanted to, I think, just give us all a little bit more breathing room before we made any came to final ground and voting on recommendations. But I thought we could, I know we're scheduled just for an hour today, I thought we could take the remaining 15 minutes or so just to kind of talk through reactions to what we've heard, and maybe if people are starting to form ideas about where you think we should be going, and then we could work with staff to schedule a time for our final meeting.
I'm more than happy to go ahead, Carlos.
No, go ahead.
Thank you, Carlos. Thank you. Okay, I've been a practicing attorney for like 40 years. Actually, I was a commissioner of district court when I first started at a young age in college. Okay, so I'm intimately familiar with the administrative judge's role, with the regular judge's role in the district and circuits, and also in the appellate levels. I can assure you, the circuit court judge, I can assure you that the administrative judge in the district court has a lot more burden to deal with than a regular judge in the district court. Not only they have to attend additional meetings, and not only do they have it serve at the pleasure of their administrative judge. So an increase in monies is very important to distinguish the different workload in that position. There's no question in my mind about that. The other issue, well, we're going to have to parse out a little bit. Do you want to make it a stipend or part of the salary? I'll just leave that out for more further discussions. The other issue, which we didn't discuss it too much with them, is the discussion of the perception of the importance of the job of a judge and the type of people that we want to be judges. Okay. And it's reality. Salary is important. Okay. And if we don't have a decent um, salary to give them, certain people will not apply. I am an example of that. I, I was asked to be a judge a couple times, and economically, it doesn't work. And that's why I didn't do it. Okay. So I think that that's a really important concept that we need to be thinking about with respect to the salaries, especially because it's a 4-year term, okay, that we're talking about. So for 2 years, they're not going to get anything. And in the the third and fourth year, they're actually going to hopefully get the salary they're requesting. I was looking at the last packet that was sent and the letter that was sent by Ed Gillis to the legislature. And it's interesting in the second paragraph, and it's in there in the sentence, it says, the commission has long recognized that individual may pursue judgeships for a variety of reasons. However, it is also maintained that salary is still an important element of attracting qualified applicants. So we have a prior commission actually mentioning that in their report. So I think that needs to be weighed pretty heavily in our discussion. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Of course, thank you. Uh, Carlos, I know you also wanted to speak. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks a lot for going first, Raphael. I think that was critical information. I was just going to put it out there, and I think kind of piggybacking on what you just said, is that to formulate an idea in terms of what proposal to make, I think it's important that we definitely give an increase, a salary increase. So let's talk about that first, a salary increase. But I think I would break it up, the total amount over 4 years, to ensure that they're more likely to get something than nothing. Because if we put a clause in there saying if this political or the economic situation of the state in 2 years is down, then they can make the decision to not go. They can do that anyway. So, I mean, the assembly can say nobody gets anything up front anyway. They have that ability to do that. They just and so I think if we spread this out over 4 years instead, where we know what the current state is today, don't know what it's going to be tomorrow, don't know what it's going to be year 3 or 4. But I think if we put that out there, it's a smaller amount per year, opposed to having a larger amount in the last 2 years, which may detract from them getting it. So if we say let's do it for over 4 years, divide that by 4, and everyone get this over 4 years, it may be a little bit more palatable year to year now than in the last 2. And so the recommendation would be to just spread it out over 4 and without any extra. I don't think we would need anything extra on top of that. The second thing, in terms of the administrative positions, question: the administrative judges, what are their base salaries based on? Associate judges?
Yes.
Okay, so they're all associate judges. So okay. So I think that what we should do is say this is the stipend. Now they would be eligible for the stipend as well as the salary increase in this case, which makes sense. And so I think this would be a stipend that would be given to administrative judges holding that position of whatever, I think it says 7,500, correct? During that period of time. And the total impact, I think he says 300. He said
1,000.
Yeah. So not a massive amount of money for the work that they do, it sounds like. So again, I would say just rewrite the statute. Well, just give them that stipend point blank. It's not salary, just stipend, and then they will still be eligible for the increase in their salary based on the annual increase that we provide.
So I that makes that's very helpful. It makes good sense. And I wanted to just respond to one point about the years in which they receive no increase. if by law, and please, John, Scott, correct me if I get this wrong, but in the years in which they receive no increase based on a recommendation from us that is then adopted by joint resolution, they do receive the state COLA. And in a year in which they do receive an increase from us as enacted through joint resolution, they do not receive the state COLA. So if we assume that there is so let's say if we were to recommend and adopt the judiciary's recommendation that we recommend 0 in the first 2 years. If there is a state COLA that the General Assembly approved, that the governor puts in his budget and the General Assembly approves in those first 2 years, they would get that. Do I have that correct, John and Scott?
Yes, that's correct.
So Megan, let me make sure I hear what you're saying. So are you saying that if we give them a bonus that for whatever year, they will not get the COLA? Is that correct?
Well, I guess I'm not treating it as a bonus. It's if we recommend that their salaries increase.
Right.
And the General Assembly adopts that, they will get that increase, but they won't get otherwise any COLA. And I know John Wasserson used to be at DBM. I don't know if, John, you have any further perspective on that.
That's my recollection, but I would defer to the current policy, to John and Scott, if in case anything has changed. But I thought that's how it was when I was at DBM.
And what would be that COLA? What's the number?
That's a good question. I know it's very difficult. We don't know that the governor, it will be past due. The deadline by which we must submit our recommendations to the General Assembly comes before the governor will be submitting his budget to the General Assembly. So we don't know. I think, I can't remember if it was within the materials you already gave us, John and Scott. I think it might be what the COLAs have been in past years.
Yeah. They got 1% in July.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Vicky. What did you say?
They got 1% last July, not the judges, because they got a salary increase, but the employees, the rank and file employees got 1%.
So what we could say though is that whichever is higher, so we could recommend a salary increase, or whichever is higher, COLA salary increase. I guess the challenge I had with COLA goes into your salary too. So I guess I have to understand, first of all, that they will not get the COLA even if we give them a salary increase. I don't think I realized that. So that's a big deal.
So what they are requesting, I thought that the additional data that they provided in response to our request was helpful, that it's kind of breaking it down by percent increase over 4 years. So if it ranges, because I appreciate their request is to have every judge at every category increased the same so that the gaps between the judges don't widen. And I personally, I would tend to support that. But anyway, because of that, the percentages are slightly different, but it ranges from 10.77% increase for the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court down to up to, I guess I should say, 13.66% increase for a magistrate of the district court. So in other words, divide those by 4. That's sort of the percent increase year over year that they would be getting, even though it's backloaded. And so, I mean, a question, I guess, in our minds is, do we expect the COLA would be more than that or less than that? It's hard to say.
Well, I mean, Vicky, you just said COLA was what last year? You said 1%?
1% last July. Yeah.
So COLA is usually in the 2 to 3% range, right? And I guess that's on a good year. I don't think I've ever seen it high as 10% ever.
No.
So, and that's why I said the clause, if we thought it would be that high, then the clause, whichever is higher. But it sounds like it's whatever we give them in terms of a salary increase is going to be higher than what they're ever going to get in COLA. And you just have to take the bruises and move forward with it. But we can still put that clause in there with COLA or salary increase of X amount, whichever is higher.
Can we? I actually don't know if we can do that, like sort of contingent analysis, John and Scott.
So in order to have something be a mandated funding level, you have to give the governor something concrete to latch onto. Otherwise, it's treated as discretionary and he can ignore it, or the governor can ignore it. So I think something, I guess, I think it would be concrete enough to say this year you give X amount in a salary increase, or maybe a COLA. I would have, that's just off the top of my head. I don't know if there's more complications related to a COLA that I have to look into.
Uh,
John, has
this
there
is
ever been a
John.
year where the governor does not give a call?
Yeah,
There
Mhm.
has been,
absolutely.
Yeah.
There you go. There you go. It might be this year. Come on.
Well, kind of, if I can, to Raphael's thing, in an election year, I doubt there won't be a COLA.
No.
Good point.
There'll probably be something in there. But the the bonus thing and the salary thing, I think we have to. I don't think we can find the easy way out by saying, whichever is higher. I think we need to make a definitive recommendation, and we need to look at the 4 years and jump off the cliff and say, what do we think it's going to be? I think it needs to be a hard and fast recommendation. I don't think we can kind of slice it easy for us. The COLAs are, they're 1% to 2%, and sometimes they give them a half in July and half in January to really thin it out. So the COLAs, way back in the day when I was young and working in the government, and sometimes we get a 3 or 4 or 5%. I mean, they are really dinosaurs right now, but 1%, maybe 2%. But I don't know, Madam Chair, are you going around asking each member for what we're thinking right now? Or you just, because I know Raphael and Carlos did. I didn't know whether you were taking everyone's temperature or what.
So I think I hadn't thought about it that way, but I actually think it would be helpful to do that. So just to kind of get a sense of where people are. So I think on the Raphael and Carlos both helpfully kind of broke it into the two topics, sort of what we think about the increase generally, both in total, and then kind of whether backloading it or spreading it out over 4 years, and then separately what we think about the issue of the stipend.
Right.
So John, do you want to kind of give us your general thoughts on those 2 points?
Happy to kind of get in line. So I'm kind of bifurcated on this. I am supportive of the administrative judges' compensation stipend, and I'm fine with the dollar amount that they put in instead of having to chop that down or whatever. And I'm somewhat comforted by the fact, as I said earlier, that the Attorney General's office has blessed that. So I think that won't get rejected because of a technicality. I think that gives me some comfort that we're making the best swing at helping those administrative judges. Where I'm probably going to be in the minority on is I looked over the one of the documents that had the historical thing of salaries and stuff. And if you look at that, you'll see periods of time when there were no increases. And I can remember being in the government at that time that those were tight fiscal times. And those were times of layoffs. And the governor and the legislature get a once every 4-year raise thing too. So they're all in the same bucket on this. And I can't get past looking at this chart that shows our structural deficit. And if you saw the latest, I know the revenue thing had a little bit of an increase, but you see the poll that UMBC put out talked about people wanting cuts and not increase fees and stuff. I think there'll be some kind of sentimental thing for the governor for this year, for maybe a 1% COLA because it's election year. But I believe strongly that there's going to be employee layoffs. And I have a hard time justifying giving people that are in state government, relatively well paid, an increase built in so they can breathe easy for 4 years. And state employees year to year either get nothing or continue to get laid off. And I think that with this structural deficit thing and having more years of a Republican in Washington, I think there's some really tough times coming down the pike. And right now, my feeling is that on the situation of salary increases for the sitting judges, I'm going to vote no. And I am going to vote yes for the administrative law judges.
So I appreciate that, John. And I again, just to be clear, we're not. I think it's helpful to kind of understand everyone's thinking about these two
subjects. I know it's not an official vote. Yeah. I don't want to surprise anyone when we talk again next. I've looked this stuff over pretty well, and I feel pretty personally comfortable with the thing. But I realize I'll probably be in a minority, and that's fine. But I just wanted to let you know were our thinking.
No,
John, I had a question for you.
I appreciate that. Go ahead, Carlos.
Yeah, I had two questions for you. One, what would, if we divided up the requested salary increase over 4 years, what percentage of their salary would that be? Would it bring it down to being what 3 or 4%? Then it would matter in terms of our statement about COLA or not. The second thing I would say is John, if we were to recommend a salary increase, we still have a catchment area because the General Assembly can say no. So I mean, but it gives us two things. So we can say, look, we recommend a salary increase based on X, Y, and Z, but we know that the General Assembly is going to have the better pulse on what the current fiscal situation is, and they can say no, and they can say it across the board. But at least we will have made a recommendation if, in the event, the economy is actually good.
I understand that, but I guess my thinking is, if we don't increase their salary, they get a COLA like every other employee. I'm saying for the next 4 years, they should be treated the same. Let them get a COLA and not a hard salary increase, because I think it's, like a caste system. It's treating higher level people differently than the rank and file. So if the governor gives a COLA, everyone that tide goes up a little bit for everybody. I don't like the idea of not recommending. I mean, I was a state employee and I understand how it is, but I look at my fiduciary responsibility to make a sound recommendation on the information we have. And yeah, we've got 1.5 hands tied behind our back because it's a snapshot for 4 years. But if all I have to look at is the forecast and what we see coming down the pike, that's how I have to base my recommendation on. So I think they should rise and fall with the regular employees and get a COLA or not get a COLA.
Is that for 4 years or just for the first two?
It would be for the whole period of this. Our recommendation is a 4-year snapshot.
Okay.
It would be, they would get COLAs for the whole 4 years if the rank and file got COLAs each year.
So I do want to hear from Vicky and Monica and Chanel. And I will, but before I do that, I will just say I am, as I think from what we learned at the outset, I think Raphael and I are the two practicing lawyers on the commission, and as another practicing lawyer who has had friends and others I know apply or not for the judiciary, I just second what Raphael said, which is that this is an area where it's just critically important to get good people with good experience applying for these jobs. And I will say that, when we think about wanting to have diversity on the bench, there are people who cannot afford to apply for the jobs because they don't necessarily have a spouse or other family member who is making an even bigger salary. That sometimes restricts people. It's important, especially on the circuit court, to have people who have civil practice experience. A lot of those people are coming from the private sector. It's difficult for those people to give up their private sector job to choose to become a member of the judiciary. I served in the Attorney General's office as a state employee before I went back to private practice. So I went through years of getting no COLA, and I understand, and I think we all do, that if you're going into public service, government service, there's going to be a pay cut from the private sector, obviously. Like, I think though it's not I think everyone appreciates that there's a sacrifice there, but I think when the salary differentials are so stark, it can be hard to encourage good people to apply for the job. So I just wanted to add that additional perspective. But Vicky, do you want to share your thoughts on these two topics?
So I'm somewhat sympathetic with the approach John's taking. That said, two things. One is, I feel if we're going to give them anything, we should spread it across the 4 years, but make it maybe not even the full amount that they asked for. So it isn't nothing, but it isn't that full amount, because I am very concerned about those last 2 years and the state's ability to do it, which might kill the whole thing altogether. I also want to bring up, with regard to compensation, that different than state employees, and someone can correct me if I've got this wrong, judges only have to pay into the pension system for 16 years, and they get 2/3 of their salary. No other employee in the state of Maryland has that kind of deal. So I'm sympathetic to the fact that we might have issues trying to get good people to do this, but it is not a bad paying job, and it is not bad as far as all the benefits that they have. So I'm not a bleeding heart over this either. So I'm undecided, but those are my two perspectives on where I could land.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Um,
Raphael, did you want to say something?
Yes, a couple of things. One is, I am in agreement that we should spread it out over the 4 years. I think that sends the right message to applicants. Now, the analysis that a judge is a state employee, I don't think it's a correct analysis. Not too many clerks get shot at. Okay. We put together the Judge Wilkinson Act, okay, because a judge was shot in his front lawn. Okay. The judge position is a very different position than the clerks of the district court or any other state employee. So I don't think it's a 1-for-1. Okay. Not only, again, are they're giving up their practice and reducing their salaries, there's actually a threat issue, which they have to consider. So I think at a minimum, we should increase their salaries for 4 years. I'm in agreement with this, the stipend issue. Thank you.
The only thing
Thank
I would
you.
say is that, Raphael, you're thinking about not state employees. I don't know if I buy that, but state police get shot out.
Yeah, I was going to say that's true.
The correctional officers get shot at. The highway
Right.
guys are putting their life. So there's a risk at a lot of these positions, and I take a little exception to separate and say that they are more at risk. Maybe in this current times, there's crazy stuff going on, but I think that would, to me, that doesn't sit well with me.
John, they have always been at risk. I can tell you in 1988, okay? I'm trying to remember the judge's name, okay? In Washington County, he went to his mailbox, okay? And there was a bomb there, okay? All right. I haven't heard that with any state police, okay?
Well, I can.
I don't want to get emotional about it.
No,
but
no.
I'm explaining.
I hear the points that you're both making. That there are other dangerous state employee jobs where people are, sort of literally putting their lives on the line every day and expect to when they sign up for those jobs and are armed when they go into those jobs.
Right.
Our judges are not carrying firearms. Our judges, and I think, John, you pointed out, I agree. The job has become more dangerous than it was. The threats are greater than they were. So, Chanel, could you tell us your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm definitely supportive of the stipend as long as it's considered separate from salary. And I think that we can definitely, write something up to support that and make that distinction. I'm sort of on the fence with whether we backload or spread it across. But I will say that I think that either way we go, I think that it would be better if we consider a lower amount than what they're putting forth, the 27,500. If this group agreed on 40,000 over the last 4 years, the last time around, I'm thinking maybe cutting that in half to say 20,000 instead of 40,000, so that we can say that we're recommending a 50% less than what we recommended in last time, considering the economic environment that we're in right now. And I feel like that messaging should play a little bit better, considering the state that the budget is in right now. Now, given that, also the other thing, I didn't realize the COLA impact. So given that they are getting something, that made me a little bit more open to the thought of backloading it, given that the economic environment. So I'm probably more so on the side of backloading it and then reducing it. But I could also get behind spreading it across, but also just reducing it and to align with like what's happening in the economic environment right now. So that's where I'm at.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Monica?
Thanks. My perspective is interesting. I'm also on the task force for fiducial adjudication and having a whole different set of conversations around orphans court and judges
Yeah.
compensation there. And
Yeah.
the outcomes there could potentially impact the number of judges here.
Interesting.
So anyway, I'm just taking this conversation in with the work of the other task force. I feel confident that I am going to remain supportive of the stipends. On the and with the clause that Chanel mentioned that they're not considered salary. With the salary, I would be supportive of a lower recommendation, possibly half, especially knowing that the General Assembly could then reduce it based on that further information. So I think it gives us the sort of the runway to to the point earlier, that we are still recommending a cut by half, but still provide the General Assembly runway, particularly because they'll have better information, or not better, more information when they decide than we do right now. I think I could be moved on the spreading across 4 years or backloading it, just because the last 2 years don't look any better. So I don't know that I have a position on that piece right now.
Great. Thank you. And thank you all for, I mean, really, these are all they're tough issues, especially given the state budget climate as we've been discussing, and everyone's really giving this a lot of careful thought and examination. So thank you to everyone. I think before we adjourn for today, I wanted to ask whether, based on this discussion, there's any additional information that you would like to request or additional analysis you would like to be done, either the judiciary might be able to provide for us, or that DLS might be able to provide for us. And once again, I thank DLS because they really do the heavy lifting here. So are there knowing that we can't know the governor's budget before we have to make a recommendation, knowing that, of course, we don't know what the economy is going to look like 2, 3, 4 years out, is there information we don't currently know that we think we could know or try to know before we take our vote next time?
There's one piece that I just wanted to mention, that this would be a legislative issue, but I want to bring it up anyway. And that, to the point Raphael made and the point John made of just there being state employees that are in inherently dangerous positions, some who are armed, some who are not armed, and the difficulty in recruiting for crucial positions like that. It may be that there's, some later legislative recommendation on, are there tax credits that could be provided for folks who are in those positions, similar to how teachers are able to get certain tax credits. So there may be other ways in the future to think about the compensation. And I'm not saying that's the only way. I'm just saying there may be other ways that we can still ensure that it's a competitive role to recruit for, that may not, take from this particular budget and, in this way. So just want to throw that out there.
Thank you.
I just had one thing to add as well, too. I think it's been a great discussion, first of all, and I think it brought to light a lot of things that we're going to need to make decisions. But I think it would be good to know that if we decide to spread this out over 4 years, what does that number look like? And will that number get closer to what COLA would be if it was 1 or 2%? So what I'm getting at is that, I don't know, it says the average salary is $200,000, and we decide to cut the requested amount in half, spread it out over 4 years, we're getting down to very small numbers that they will be given every year. And that way, it may be a matter of hundreds of dollars, if not tens of dollars, difference between COLA and the salary increase. So that's why I said the whole concept about whichever one is higher, because if we decide to go that pathway, then we start getting into the small numbers. Does that make sense?
Yes, I do see what you're saying, that that maybe it would be helpful, and John and Scott, I don't know if it would be easiest to ask the judiciary to do this, or if this would be something you would do. You know, they gave us that two-pager that sort of shows the percent increase over 4 years. And to be clear, that's like that is from now, from 2026 to 30. So if we kept their recommendation, it would still be the same percent increase, whether we divide it over 4 years or backload it. But I think maybe looking at sort of, if we took their recommendation and broke it down over 4 years, what would that look like each year? Is that kind of what you're thinking, Carlos?
That's
And
right.
then separately, like, and percent, like, what would that mean percentage year over year? And then we could all sort of do our own extrapolation on our own. If we cut their recommendation by whatever amount, we could kind of calculate that ourselves, but just kind of taking their recommendation, kind of divide it out over 4 years rather than backloading it. And if you could tell us what the percentage increase is then year over year, is that what you're asking, Carlos?
Absolutely right, because the governor's COLA increase is going to be based on an annual basis, correct? And so if he decides to say 3% for everyone, that's great. But then 3% may actually be less than what we're recommending for a salary increase.
Right.
I mean, maybe more. And so I think it's really important for us to kind of be able to have that as we make the final decisions moving forward.
And I do want to make sure the General Assembly cannot increase our recommendation. Is that correct?
That's
But
correct.
they can decrease it.
That's right.
Correct.
So that's an important issue if we decide to lower the recommendation.
Right. That's my point. Yes, that's right.
Thank you.
That's
Madam
yeah,
Chair?
that you've got it right.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, two questions. For John and Scott, the issue of, I think I heard Carlos using once or twice, we should put something in whichever is higher, lower, whatever. I wonder if that is, I'd ask the staff, is that definitive enough for our recommendation? I mean, are we allowed to have language in there that kind of gives us an either or? Because as you said earlier, the governor needs a number in the budget and so forth. So my first thought would be whether we can, quote, get away with something like that. So I don't know whether you know off the top of your head, or you want to know for the next meeting, because that sounds a little wishy-washy to me. Just my reaction to that. I love the intention, but I just wonder if it would pass muster.
I know there can be like a formula. It just has to be something that's easily concretely calculated by the governor. But before our next meeting, I can make sure to have a definitive answer specifically about COLA, if that is like concrete enough to be considered a mandated funding amount.
Okay.
Thank you. That would be helpful.
And Madam Chair, my second thing is, are you using executive privilege, or are you going to share some of your thoughts with us today?
Oh, I'm happy to, sure. I hadn't, you're right. I was sort of chiming in here and there, but yes, I'm happy to. So my, on the stipend issue, I agree. I think that we should offer it. I tend to agree that for the reason you said, John, that OAG has already blessed it, that we would call it a stipend and have it be treated as a stipend, and sort of using whatever legal principles. If a recommendation should be that the statute be amended, then that's what we do, because I do think it's appropriate. I also agree that there should be some, I would recommend some increase, and I haven't come to ground yet on exactly how much it should be and whether it should be spread over 4 years or backloaded, but I do think there should be some increase.
Okay, thank you.
Vicky, I think did you want to say something earlier?
I was sorry. I was just going to say I have to get off.
No, that's great. We're I think
as
wrapping
long
up.
as I can, but I've jumped up and down a few times because someone came to the office I wasn't expecting, and
No, not at all. Did anyone, and Vicky, please go ahead if you have to get off, and we'll convene over email to figure out the next date.
Great.
Did anyone else have anything, any other questions before we adjourn?
Did you want to try and do a date now? Or
Yes, I think that would be a good idea.
I'm happy to, if John and Scott, if you can help us. I know that John and Scott, there's some restrictions, I think, on the schedule on your end. And so if you could just let us know sort of what dates on your end are possibilities, and then we can work from there.
So I think the hard deadline for decision would be January 13th. So that's like the very end. We between December 23rd and January 4th, the DLS staff cannot convene. So the opening, or we wouldn't be able to facilitate this meeting. But that would leave open the 22nd, which is next Monday, but that might be too quick, or it would leave open January 5th to January 13th.
Thank you. So my my suggestion would be that we schedule for either January 5th or January 6th. I think that the 22nd is, I agree, a little bit quick. And also others may be traveling or doing other things next week for the holidays. But I don't want to push it beyond the 5th or 6th if we can help it, because I want to make sure we give you enough time to pull everything together. How do others feel about that?
Works for me. Either one.
Yep.
I cannot do the 5th
I was gonna say.
because I'm going to be in a trial. The 6th is fine for me. In at 12 o'clock if it's possible.
Same. 6 is better at noon.
Okay. So so this time again for everyone. And I guess I realize I let Vicky go before confirming with her, but we'll double check that with her. So shall we tentatively say Tuesday, January 6th at noon?
Works for me.
Hold on. Can I check one more time? I'm sorry.
Yes, of course.
Checking new trial schedules. Okay, I apologize.
And let me just ask, is I have something at noon that I can reschedule if I need to. This takes priority, but if there were other times in the day that would work for people, that might be better for me.
I'm going to ask, I'm sorry. I just noticed I hate this. I have a juvenile case at 1 o'clock on the 6th. If it's going to be a quick vote, I don't have any problem. But at 1 o'clock, I got to be in juvenile court on the 6th. I mean,
and so would morning, let's just assume it will be half an hour. So I don't want to, so could you do morning earlier or later in the afternoon after your case, Raphael?
I can do morning early on the 6th. And I can do later after 3 o'clock on the 6th. And
Either of
12
those would be
o'clock, I
fine
can do
with
half an hour. Yeah. I'm
I'm
sorry.
sorry when I dropped off. What dates were we saying? I got disconnected.
That's okay, Carlos. We're looking at Tuesday, January 6th, and we're looking at either earlier in the morning, like say 9 o'clock, or 3 p.m. or later.
It'll be later for me, I think, on that day.
Okay. So everyone else, if we did it at 3 or 4 p.m., would one or the other of those work?
Either works for me.
Either works for me.
Chanel, no?
Yeah, 4 probably would be better for me.
Okay. And Monica, does 4 p.m. on Tuesday the 6th work for you?
That's fine.
Okay, so let's go ahead and do that then, John and Scott and Jesus, and we'll confirm with Vicky that works for her.
Great.
Yeah. We can
So what's the
All
time
right.
again? So it's on the 6th at 4 tentatively at this point, correct?
That's right, exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
We send out an email just to confirm with Vicky.
Yes. So if everyone could, I guess, just for now, place a hold on your calendar for that time, just so we don't lose it. We'll confirm with Vicky, and then after we've done that, John and Scott and Jesus will coordinate the Zoom link.
Sounds great.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone. Happy holidays.
Thank you.
Happy holidays.
Thanks for calling in from Germany.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeoman, that's yeoman stuff.